Dr. Kizza Besigye. He has given us some kind of a history of the struggle in the last, at least the last 20 years, and where that has brought us where we are right now. But now I just want to know, there are people, the pulse of the city or the pulse of Uganda is that, look, Dr. Besigye, you have found yourself on very unfamiliar territory. We are having this scientific kind of campaigns. Perhaps you do not even understand what it is like. I'm not challenging your intelligence, but how really it's going to work. Fundraising is very difficult. Perhaps you cannot even travel abroad or within. You have a young man who has come up with such momentum. He's another political gladiator. And you're like, if I get into this, the numbers in terms of percentage they could actually get could go down. So the safe bet is to avoid some kind of a political embarrassment. You stay out.
You see, again, Patrick, frankly, I have absolutely no intention of persuading Ugandans about what it is that advised my departure beyond what I have said. And, you know, they are entirely entitled, everyone, to their own interpretations and their own opinions. But what I continue to dwell on is that this is not about me, has never been, cannot be. It will be extremely wrong, missing the point to think that this is about Kyagulanyi or any of us. Absolutely not. This is about everybody. You are talking about the circumstances after COVID, especially the lockdown that COVID imposed on the country. That lockdown has accelerated the dangers of people's existence that I talked about, the existential threat. I don't know whether you are hearing people burning themselves, setting themselves ablaze. I don't know whether you had heard this before. Ugandans putting themselves on fire and dying. About 6 have already burnt themselves dead in Kampala here. That was after a young man burnt himself right inside the police station in Masaka. Suicide, the rate of suicide. Yesterday there was a report by police. The rate of suicide which is going up. The kind of desperation the country is in. Now, if you dwell on Besigye and you don't interrogate where this came from, what caused this, how will you know how it goes away? So, if you reduce this to Besigye's ego or Besigye's pursuits, maybe ambitions, no, it's about the country and what has caused it. This is why I told you that I would want. So this Besigye, this country that you say is captured, and the people you were trying to convince, asked the question before, what do you advise them to do to liberate themselves? Precisely. So I said the structured debate I would want us to have is first, what is the problem? Or what is it we are trying to change? Because even when you say we are forces of change, you may be wanting to change not the same thing. You know, what is it we want to change? And I have told you what I think should change. Control of the country by what you call capture, by a small group that uses force to capture everybody and marginalize everybody, monopolize resources, and use ruthless means to suppress everybody. That is the problem, as I understand it. So that everybody else has no rights, has no freedoms, has no say. That is the problem, as I understand it. The question is, what do we do about it? And that's where we had reached. What is the strategy to get rid of this? Shall we get rid of this using an election? Shall we get rid of this taking guns like we did and going to Ruero? Shall we get rid of this using any other means? That is a very important conversation we must have as a country, especially if we get to the conclusion that I say is the case. Because if you say people have no power, they are marginalized, they have no influence in the country, they have no say, they don't control their resources. If that is the problem, that they have no power, how will they get power? Because if you say what you have no power, what is the power they don't have? And I have previously crystallized it to you what I think the power we don't have. That it's in largely 4 areas. That we have no power over our resources. We don't control the resources of Uganda. Those who have power use our resources entirely as they want. The other day we borrowed money for COVID, about 2.5 trillion. More than half was sorted off and taken by Mr. Museveni through disguises that it is classified. What is classified in managing COVID? That you take half the money we have borrowed, which we are going to pay, and then all of a sudden you are distributing bicycles to LC, your NRM chairman all over the country. Where do you raise the money from, you NRM? They have never filed returns, which we are all entitled to read their returns in the Electoral Commission, how they raise the money they spend, So the fact that we have no control over resources is a matter that I believe everybody understands. 2, that we have no control over decision making. And if anybody had a doubt, you saw what happened in Tojikwatako, when the whole country was saying, don't change our constitution. And Mr. Museveni shamelessly, in broad daylight, under cameras, brings soldiers from State House or from President's office. They descend under camera, enter Parliament without any invitation. The Speaker protests. They enter Parliament and cause mayhem in Parliament in broad daylight. That treasonable act has never happened in Uganda. Otherwise, this talk we are having should not be there. Mr. Museveni would never be on the ballot. We had sorted out this in the Constituent Assembly. But can we make a constitution? Do we have power to make laws? Do we? The people with power are the ones who make laws, not people without power. So the constitution that was made by people without power has changed to reflect what those with power. And what's the third area? The third area is implementation of those decisions. Whether you can, who has power to implement? Like if you indeed make a budget, who implements it? Who decides what happens? All this is just like in your house. The people who have power in your house make decisions in your home. They control the wealth of the home, those who have power in the home. They make decisions, they implement them. The fourth is deciding who is wrong and who is right. Adjudication. The courts have power. I heard that my brother Alfonsi Owinidoro has just been named Chief Justice. He is not Chief Justice of anything, That's the truth. Anybody who has been will tell you. He will be Chief Justice in any matter that Mr. Museveni has no interest in. You have seen the military attack courts. They did so in my case because it was again politics. Attacked court. Blood was flowing in the Chief Justice's office. So, if you have no power to decide, what is an election? Is it a decision-making process? If you say we have no power, I have no power to decide.
So I wonder, what is the strategy? Because the other day you talked of plan B.
So the strategy, this is why I say, the strategy, and sometimes people mix strategy and tactics. or what we call main strategy and minor strategies. So in any process of doing something, you must find the process that will guide or lead whatever you want to do up to when it is done. If we want to change from gun rule to people rule, the method we use from the beginning to the end, what happens, what is a constant in that process is the main strategy. Under the main strategy, you can have minor strategies. For example, when we were in the bush fighting, our main strategy was armed struggle, protracted people's war. That was our main strategy. But it did not mean that we did not, for example, conduct elections. In our liberated areas, we actually conducted elections for leaders. But you could not say that our strategy was to use the election of local leaders to change the government in Kampala. No. What would cause the government in Kampala to change was war that we were conducting. But under that, we did dialogue. There was dialogue. You cannot say that the strategy was dialogue. So the strategy...
A multi-pronged strategy.
Yes, so the strategy of ending capture, forceful capture of power, the strategy of ending that is fighting. That is the main strategy. The other thing you now need to decide in that main strategy is fighting in what way. And there are two main ways. You can fight using lethal tools like we did in Ruwero, armed fighting, warfare, armed warfare, or you can fight without using arms. The British were defeated and left Uganda by fighting of the people of Uganda. They didn't take up guns, but they defeated the British who were controlling the world, the British Empire.
But you see, you tried to energize the people of Uganda. You came up with so many strategies. One of them was defiance, walk to work, P10 and all these kind of things. They were not a form of fighting using guns, but still you never gained momentum to actually cause change. So you have used all this, the tricks up your sleeve.
Yes. First of all, again, I must at every stage underscore the fact that this is a problem for Ugandans.
Yes, but there's always a leader. But you have offered leadership.
Yes, I am offering leadership.
And that's why I have to ask you, because you have offered leadership.
I am not offering it to people that are not participating. They must be participatory. So, if anybody says, by the way, that strategy is not working, I am all ears to hear.
So you have had so many strategies.
Yes, so what I'm saying is...
But they have not worked.
Yet. You see, again, it's like if a strategy is going to work, there is a prescribed time that if it has not worked by this time, we were in the bush for 5 years. Some spend 30, some 50 in armed struggle. You know? So, when do you say they have failed? But even if it's not armed struggle, even in your own personal endeavors, you know, I'm sure, Patrick, there are many things you want to achieve, which you set off to achieve from the time you were an adult. Maybe you want to have a big farm and live a comfortable life, have a swimming pool and have all kinds of things. There are things, you have dreams. When will you say, I have now failed, I think I am a failure, this is no longer possible? No. You continue waking up every day to exert yourself maximally until you achieve your goals. I have told you that in this case, we are talking about life or death, existence or perishing. So we have no luxury to talk about failure. The people of Uganda, I mean, not me. Me, I have, at least, even when I go, if I went tonight, I would not go lamenting that I did not do what I needed to do, what I felt should be done. As long as I'm alive, And this is what I was telling people. You know, who think that the struggle is an election. In fact, a fake election.
So now,
that is the struggle.
The people of
Uganda.
You are like-minded people. I hope that you are like-minded people who are now opposing the NRM government seem to think that the ballot has a solution to change the affairs of our country. So I wonder how you're going to work with them.
There is nothing wrong, you see. I told you there. Different minds. Different strategies, different tactics, and so on. But it is important, especially for platforms that are serious on causing change in Uganda, it's important for us to have a very direct conversation, intense internal conversation on the strategy. Because if we are pulling in different directions, it undermines the collectivity.
But that's what is exactly happening.
Yes, you know, first of all, you know, our people tend to become despondent over nothing. There is no process that doesn't have countercurrents. Every process generates countercurrents. You have opposing forces within any process. That does not mean that the process has stalled. You keep on going with the difficulties. So in every struggle, there are struggles within a struggle. One of the main struggles within a broad struggle is agreeing on what to do. Even when we were in the bush, there were those conversations with different forces. You had the UFM, which had its own approach to doing things. You had the Moses Alis up north and so on, who had their own way of doing things, the former soldiers, you know, Uganda Army and so on. But it's important that if you want to achieve your objective quickly, you harmonize. Not harmonizing doesn't mean you don't achieve.
So
you still achieve.
There are people in this election or in this race who would want to see Dr. Kizza Besigye behind probably the Honorable Robert Kyagulanyi, going, you know, supporting him because they believe now all roads are leading to Magere and not Kasanga, now that you are not even on the ballot, because they seem to have the political clout and the momentum if you are out of the race. So are you willing, since you are all within the forces of change, if you agree what change that you want, to go behind him and support him?
So, first of all,
Dr. Besigye, do you find that hard to answer? Are you willing to go behind him and support him?
This is exactly what I want to answer. That first of all, I want you to know that even as you go into the election, you can be in the election and have a message that undermines what I am doing. So being in the election, and even when we are in TDA actually, part of our disagreement was, what is this election about? As I have told you, in 2016, I was very clear that the election was about preparing people to fight for their right. Not going to talk about schools and this and that. That was my clear view in 20, and I raised it in the TD. I said, what are we going in for? Now, if, for example, Mbabazi was going in believing he was going to be announced and there will be a ceremony in Kororo to hand over power to him with a manifesto that he's going to implement and so on, whereas I don't believe so, then I have no business being supporting him. Absolutely none. So that's why it's important in harmonizing where you are going and how you are going. For example,
isn't that too late now?
No, it's not. It's never too late. The campaigns don't kick off, at least in the presidential elections, until November. We have a lot of time to discuss. So what is, I can tell you without the slightest fear of contradiction, that I will support all candidates that advocate to the people of Uganda the urgency of liberation. And that.
But these candidates, some of them are going to be in competition. If you have, for example, Patrick Amuriach or Ambassador Wachwa Birigwa, against Robert Chagulanyi. How do you support those when they are competing?
When you have what?
Those candidates you're going to support, some of them will be in competition for the same position.
No, I don't support people who are competing. You see, again, that's also another thing. If you remember my first question, what are we doing? Are we fighting to change leadership or to change a system? Are we fighting to cause qualitative change in Uganda or just change?
Even changing system, there are some people who are offering leadership in trying to change the system. So you'll have to show support to those individuals who are giving leadership.
Yes, so
that will cause you trouble because you may find it difficult to choose where to go.
So I'm answering your question in two stages. I said, first of all, I will, without any hesitation, support the right message, what I consider to be a message that is aligned to what I believe will cause change in our country. And that is telling the people of Uganda that we must all unite to get ourselves out of prison. That is the most urgent thing, so that we have control of our money, our decision making, our justice system, and so on. So if all of them, for example, are agreed on where we want to go, the second thing that I am advocating for is to have a united platform. If all of us are talking about freeing ourselves, why then must you, dissipate, break up the power that we have? Because as we know, when you unify political power, it multiplies. If you have 5 tons, I have tons, and we unite them to, I have 5 tons, you have 5 tons, in politics you get 30 tons. Unity is a lot of power. So my second advocacy in this process, and that's why I did not want to be a candidate, because then I would be one of the competitors, as you are saying. My second,
that unity that is so important has eluded you so much. It looks like the Holy Grail. You cannot get to it.
You see,
in the opposition,
unity amongst people with vested interests is not easy to achieve. When, as I have told you, somebody indeed wants to become a president, wants to become this, but I am not talking, the reason I'm even mentioning this here is that this is not about the leaders. It should not be about unity of Muntu, Kyagulanyi, Tumukunde, Besi, and I'm not now in the, I don't know who, the Rwomushana, I don't know all these people. It's not about that. The people of Uganda, who are the biggest sufferers in all this, must drive, must force us. They should not be quiet in all this. Because as I've told you, they are burning themselves out of desperation. All of us will have food in our homes, not them. So the most urgent matter is the people of Uganda. And if they want to stop burning themselves, at least let them burn us with the problem. Don't burn yourselves, burn us into sense that it's not about us, it's about you. And there is no reason, there is absolutely, so the starting point, as I have said, is what is it we are trying to achieve? 2, how do we want to achieve it? 3, how do we get together to achieve it? If we are united about this, change will come in 1 week. In 1 week, there would be change here. This is a regime, actually, I have never seen dictators as weak as this Museveni dictatorship. It's possible, I can tell you, all dictators in any case, all of them, by the time they collapse, they are hollow things. They are just standing because people fear them. They think they are something. When anybody pokes a finger, you see the whole thing just... You saw Mobutu here. You know, Mobutu kept on ruling Congo when he was long gone, physically and otherwise. But the Congolese were totally afraid of Mobutu. Kuku was a banger. You know?
But it had to take the intervention of Rwanda,
Precisely.
of Uganda, and other...
And you know how people were so terrified that Rwanda should not even dare touch Mobutu, you know? I know what happened. Why do you think even Uganda couldn't go there when Rwanda went? They thought Mobutu was a terrible thing. But when Rwanda entered, the whole thing, you know, it had long gone. This is what is happening here. You know, you hear people, the strong man of the... Which strong man? When you have no economy. Even the fuel Museveni puts in his vehicle now, he's borrowing. He has no money of his. This money which came from the World Bank the other day, it is the one supporting the budget to pay soldiers to beat us up. That is, he has no money to pay his own soldiers. That is no longer a system you can talk of.
But you know, you can sit and say all these things and you can make sense. But end up making sense to yourselves. There was an election just a few days ago, or the youth election.
Oh, you are back at it again.
But you know, this is what is happening.
You see,
79% of the youth leaders are in the NRM party.
You see, please,
Dr. Besigye, you cannot just speak out what you want and that's what you emphasize. I also have to tell you what has happened.
Yes, but disabuse yourselves. This Keita man of Mali, the Keita, Boubacar Keita, who was just, I don't know whether he's in jail now or wherever he is at the moment. How much did he get in the elections the other day? What is happening to him now? Where is the 85% of people who voted for him? Because you see, you talk about voting, electoral processes, as if, you know, again, you have power to decide. Once we agree on that basic, that we have no power to decide, then you cannot talk about people deciding. Because that's what elections are. Who compiles the register? Tell me. Who compiles the register of these youth? Who manages that election and the process and compiles the results and announces? Who? Did you hear Mr. Museveni? Even in the process of the election, the youth process had even begun, sacking senior staff of the Electoral Commission. Did you hear that?
So, do you want to dispute the fact that the NRM came on top in the youth elections just a few days back?
You know, if you have ears to waste, you can listen to that trash. Because there
is a fact, Dr. Besigye.
Which fact?
That they came on top. That they have that even in some areas that are supposed to be opposition stronghold, that they have serious inroads. In fact, this is even following a survey that I told you about the other day.
You see, as I told you, this is the regime that would be totally ashamed under normal circumstances to even say those kinds of things. Mr. Museveni did not get 5% of the vote in 1980. 5% of his home area, not of Uganda, of his home area where he is born. He didn't get 5%. Is that how desperately unpopular he was? Is that what he would like to tell us? That Mr. Museveni, the freedom fighter, the minister of, I don't know, whatever, you know, that he only managed less than 5%? I beg your pardon. So if you are the same Mr. Museveni, you know, massaging yourself, that now I have, I don't know, 70%, and you expect people to listen to that kind of junk, you know? So, you know, these elections you are talking about, you have been here, you know how they are conducted. LC1 elections, I had them claiming they had 90% of you know, results in LC1 elections. Where are those elections? I beg your pardon.
You know, Dr. Besigye, there has been a situation where, as political party in opposition, have even failed to bring out people to compete in some areas?
Yes.
And many areas.
Of course. Let me ask you, today, to become a candidate, to be in parliament, you need 3 million shillings. Okay? How many teachers, very respectable teachers, that made Mr. Museveni speak English, how many can afford 3 million for nomination? You know? And if teachers of their country cannot be nominated, what kind of electoral process is that? Is it exclusive? You know? If to be elected now, you know, who doesn't know that it's about what you pay? And people will eat the money indeed, because they are starving. They have, I told you, this system that serves a handful and marginalizes the entire population. Now after COVID, the people burning themselves are the ones you think will not take 500 shillings to stand behind you. If I'm burning myself because I have nothing to take back home. So we are in a situation, and this is why it's not possible to have free and fair elections before this junta, this terrible junta goes off and the country is reset in some formal manner, structurally, so that we have institutions that are independent, but also that people at least have some sense of social security, you know. And this is very easy to attain, very, very easy to attain, that somebody can be assured at least of some health, of some food on the table, and basics. But if you are in a country now, you know, these millions who are starving today, starving literally, whom they are chasing out of houses. Do you know how many people are on the verandas? You had, you know, the regime saying the police should not evict people. But why shouldn't I evict somebody from my house if that's what I depend on to survive? If you have not made any arrangement for me, who built the house, who has a loan in the bank, the loan has not stopped trying to take my house, how would you stop me from claiming rent? You have not paid any attention to these problems. Okay. You know? So if you have desperate people who have nowhere to sleep, how do you ask them to vote?
Hold on to your points there, Dr. Kizza Besigye. We're going to take a break and we'll be right back.